The first strikes, it starts like an ordinary morning. Nothing about it signals what is about to change. The world doesn't warn you when it shifts. It simply does. Around 6:17 a.m. Eastern Time, the first reports begin to surface online. A sudden flash somewhere in Eastern Europe. Satellite feeds pick up something no one wants to confirm: a missile launch. Within minutes, social media turns into chaos. Confusion spreads faster than facts. News stations hesitate between silence and speculation. As details slowly come together, the reality becomes clear. The first strikes of a global war have begun. Across the United States, there is no instant panic. First, it feels unreal. Phones buzz on bedside tables. Early risers scroll through breaking headlines that change by the second, from unconfirmed explosion to NATO response confirmed. The stock markets haven't opened yet. Flights are still boarding. Coffee machines hum. Morning radio plays as usual. Traffic builds on familiar roads. But beneath all of it, something invisible begins to spread. A quiet, growing tension that no one can fully explain. National emergency alert at 6:45 a.m. Emergency alerts suddenly light up phones across the East Coast. The message is short and direct. National defense condition elevated. Remain indoors. Await further instructions. Most people have never seen a DEFCON-style alert in their lifetime. Some assume it's a glitch or a cyberattack. Others think it's limited to a small area. But the sharp, official tone cuts through everything. Cafes, homes, train stations, freezing people in place. In major cities, emergency systems activate long-prepared protocols. Crowd control procedures, transit shutdowns, and curfews last used decades ago begin again. Subways stop between stations. Airspace over major cities is restricted. Flights heading overseas are ordered back to gates. Still, there are no explosions. No visible destruction. Only information. Fragmented, conflicting, and deeply unsettling. Television networks switch to non-stop emergency coverage. Anchors read prepared statements that feel like echoes from another era. Officials urge calm, but their expressions reveal something different: uncertainty, and a quiet fear that this is no longer just a drill. Panic buying and rising fear as the sun rises fully over the East Coast. Millions begin to understand that something irreversible has started far away. The shock hasn't fully reached them yet, but its impact is already moving inward. By 8 a.m., the country is fully awake, but no longer at ease. Daily life begins to break apart. Communication systems still function, but information becomes both essential and dangerous. Television anchors speak carefully, almost in whispers. The same instructions repeat again and again. Stay indoors, avoid travel, remain calm. In cities like Chicago, Atlanta, and Dallas, people rush into supermarkets. Shelves empty within minutes. Bottled water, canned food, batteries, gone faster than any storm preparation. Gas stations become crowded, lines stretching around blocks. Engines idle. Arguments break out over fuel and supplies. Just hours earlier, these were ordinary mornings filled with routine stress. Now every decision feels different. The government's early strategy focuses on control, keeping information flowing while preventing panic from spiraling completely out of hand. Market halt and lockdown response. The goal is containment. Inform the public without triggering total panic, and maintain order while military operations shift quietly behind the scenes. But the absence of visible warfare creates its own instability. By 10 a.m., misinformation spreads faster than official updates can correct it. False claims of missile impacts in cities like Los Angeles and Houston flood social media feeds. Amateur videos, some real, many fabricated, show flashes in the sky, intercepted or destroyed by unseen forces. For millions watching on their phones, the line between truth and rumor begins to disappear. In Washington, D.C., the White House remains under heavy protection, surrounded by barricades. Helicopters circle overhead without pause. Military convoys move out of the Capitol toward undisclosed locations. In New York, Wall Street halts trading after repeated circuit breakers trigger. The market doesn't collapse, it simply stops. Across the country, uncertainty spreads faster than any official message can contain. Power grids begin to fluctuate, not because of any direct strike, but because of overwhelming demand. People rush to charge phones, power radios, and keep freezers running all at once. The fear of being disconnected starts to feel just as intense as the fear of an actual attack. By midday, schools across the country begin shutting down. The Department of Education releases a statement calling it a precautionary closure. Parents immediately head out to collect their children, and the roads quickly become jammed. Highways fill up, not because of official evacuation orders, but because of instinct. People simply want to get home. In just a few hours, the country experiences the first strange contradiction of modern conflict. The physical battle hasn't arrived, but its presence is already everywhere. On screens, in conversations, in every decision being made. By afternoon, the digital world begins to fail. Then, suddenly, everything goes quiet. Not from explosions, but from a complete systems failure. Officials had warned about possible cyber disruptions, but few truly understood what that would look like until it actually began. ATMs freeze in the middle of transactions. Card payments stop working at gas stations. The internet slows down, stutters, and then collapses entirely in many regions. Online banking disappears. Government websites go offline. Even local news feeds stop updating. Social media platforms flicker out one by one, like lights going out during a storm. It isn't a total shutdown everywhere, but a fragmented collapse that spreads quickly. Each failure triggers more panic, and that panic spreads faster than information ever could. In cities, digital payment systems fail completely, leaving stores unable to sell even what little inventory they have left. In rural areas, cell towers begin dropping one after another, cutting entire communities off from the outside world. Emergency radio stations become the last reliable connection. A calm voice repeats the same message over and over. This is a national broadcast. Remain calm. Federal authorities are responding. But as the message loops, fewer and fewer people believe it. By early afternoon, hospitals switch to emergency protocols. Backup generators come online. Ambulances sit idle in parking lots to conserve fuel. Outside, patients and families gather, waiting for updates that no longer arrive. At home, millions of people stand in front of routers that no longer function, staring at screens that refuse to load anything. People begin digging through drawers for old radios, flashlights, and spare batteries. Neighbors who rarely spoke before start talking again across fences and driveways, as if rediscovering an older way of life. The collapse doesn't destroy the system instantly, it disconnects it. And that disconnection creates something deeper and more unsettling. Without information, imagination fills the gap. For the first time in decades, the country doesn't feel united or divided. It feels isolated, broken into millions of separate individuals cut off from everything they relied on. By mid-afternoon, one truth becomes clear. In modern conflict, the first thing to collapse isn't infrastructure or armies. It's certainty itself. As evening approaches, darkness falls without the familiar glow of cities. Widespread outages now stretch across entire regions. Streetlights, buildings, and skylines go dark. What little light remains comes from candles, lanterns, and emergency beacons. Major cities impose curfews. Police vehicles move slowly through empty streets, loudspeakers echoing between buildings, instructing people to return home and stay indoors. The messages feel distant and hollow, even as they're repeated. In rural areas, families gather around battery-powered radios. The voices coming through are delayed, fragmented, often pre-recorded hours earlier. Instructions repeat: boil water, stay indoors, conserve supplies, but the reason behind them is unclear. Fear begins to change shape. It's no longer about a visible enemy or immediate impact. It becomes the fear of not knowing, of being unable to see the full picture, of not knowing what has already been lost. Later, rumors begin to spread of explosions offshore and possible naval clashes in the Atlantic. With no internet and no reliable communication, nothing can be confirmed or denied. On the highways, traffic has come to a complete stop. Those who left early now sleep in their vehicles, engines off to save fuel. Above them, the sky remains unusually quiet, broken only by occasional distant streaks of light, impossible to identify and even harder to explain. In living rooms across America, old habits begin to return. Handwritten notes, quiet prayers, and long stretches of silence that feel heavier than sound itself. Some neighbors pool together generators and supplies. Others lock their doors and keep to themselves. Trust starts to weaken in subtle, invisible ways. Yet even in the darkness, resilience takes hold. In small towns everywhere, churches open their doors to anyone seeking shelter. Volunteers organize food distribution with whatever they can find. Amateur radio operators, once overlooked hobbyists, become essential lifelines, connecting communities across states when everything else fails. A fragile, improvised sense of unity begins to emerge. Human, imperfect, but real. By nightfall, the blackout has spread across the entire country. For the first time in modern memory, the United States falls asleep disconnected from itself. The war has not yet reached every home directly, but its presence is everywhere. In the silence, in the fear, in the awareness that nothing is stable anymore. The first day of the war ends not in destruction, but in silence. And that silence settles into every mind like a weight. The morning after dawn brings no comfort, only confirmation that the world has changed. Across the country, streets sit frozen in a state of abandonment. Cars remain where they were left. Gas stations stand dark and empty, their signs no longer glowing, prices meaningless. The usual rhythm of life is gone. Silence now defines the landscape. No planes cross the sky. No music leaks from stores. Only footsteps, distant movement, and the faint crackle of emergency radios break the stillness. Sometime during the night, a brief official message was broadcast over emergency channels. The voice was unfamiliar, distorted by static, almost mechanical. The message was short and restrained. The nation remains intact, continuity of government is in effect, shelter in place, assistance will come, but no one can say when. People begin taking inventory of what remains. Food, water, fuel. Supply chains have collapsed. Stores are closed. Credit means nothing. What once felt endless has become sharply limited, measured in hours and necessity. Still, something unexpected begins to surface beneath the uncertainty. A quiet calm. Neighbors who rarely spoke now share meals by candlelight. Parents try to steady their children with stories of endurance. Communities that once drifted apart over distance, politics, and screens now rediscover something simpler: the need to belong to each other. History rarely announces its turning points. It arrives quietly, hidden inside confusion and ordinary decisions made under pressure. By midday, improvised aid centers begin forming in schools, churches, and open parking lots. Amateur radio operators report scattered transmissions from overseas, fragmented signals suggesting the conflict is still expanding. The war continues into its second day, but for most people, the front line remains invisible. It is no longer measured in miles or borders, but in uncertainty. In just 24 hours, a nation built on abundance has been forced to confront how fragile that abundance truly is. The systems that once defined daily life, power, markets, constant connection, have disappeared, leaving behind something older and more fundamental: trust, courage, endurance. And so the first day ends not with cities falling, but with a population waking up to what survival really means.